Hello, everyone. I'm Freida Wales, and I'm honored today to be joined by the entertainer and cult leader, Peaches Christ. Not only is she one of the godmothers of horror drag, but with gay tag, she's now promising 60% quieter queens. Check out WQUR Queer Quarantine Radio to learn more. Please welcome our Lord and Savior, Peaches Christ.
Hi, oh my gosh.
Insert laughing noises here.
I love it. I know we all have to start pretending we get a reaction these days.
Yeah. Oh my God, you guys are the best audience ever.
Right, exactly.
All right, we're going to dive right into these questions. What is the origin of your name?
Well, I grew up a kid in Maryland who was being raised Catholic, and I went to Catholic school and, was kind of brainwashed into believing all this stuff. And so when, of course, I started to realize that I was queer and I felt very betrayed by the church and that community, I really, kind of leaned into a more radical queer culture because my whole entrance into being fascinated by drag was through the films of John Waters and Divine, and of course then discovering Frankenfurter and the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So when I decided I was going to do drag, I chose a name that I knew was provocative and I knew would piss some people off. And I still actually quite like religious iconography to this day, and playing with religious gore, and that sort of sentiment of being Peaches Christ has sort of stuck with me. However, the sort of angry young person who wanted to piss people off, I'm less that nowadays and more, I guess, irreverent in a different way. So at the beginning, Peaches was very goth and angry and sacrilegious at every turn.
And now you're just a gorgeous legend.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of surreal to me to realize that, Peaches Christ is even in San Francisco at one time was like sort of protested, by people. And then now it's like I'm very much accepted by the establishment of the city, for better or worse. Sometimes I think it's kind of weird, strange that, I'm invited to do things with a senator or something. I'm like, wait, that's not punk rock at all.
Could you share a memory from one of your first performances as Peaches?
Well, my first ever time actually doing drag was for my senior thesis film when I was at Penn State. I was a film student. And like I said, I worshiped John Waters and really, underground filmmaking. So I was making this movie. I was directing this movie called Jizzmopper.
Yeah.
People did not appreciate. And the actor we'd hired to play the drag queen manager of this porno place was a friend of mine, but they were kind of flaking and not showing up for the shoot. And so I actually stepped in and put on the drag. And before that, I was doing a lot of club kid looks. It was mid-90s at this point. But, I was very comfortable wearing lipstick and barrettes and, crazy shoes. But I hadn't yet done like a full drag look. So my very first time in drag is playing Peaches in the movie Jizzmopper. And so I was, in drag a number of days for that shoot while trying to direct it. And it's funny to me because most people don't have that experience, especially that at the first time in drag. And then I went on to make a lot more movies with me in drag. So I've always kind of done drag through the lens of cinema, but I don't recommend it at all. I wish my first time in drag wasn't forever captured, on 16 millimeter film because, I was a major booger. Like I didn't have a clue as to what I was doing. And it was the mid 90s. So, it was grunge drag, club kid drag. It was really, I look back on it now with fondness, but there was a period of time where I was really embarrassed by it.
I've got a couple of those photos too where my eyebrows are like, woo, and I'm like, yeah.
Great queen, who has an original look. A lot of people don't like my look now, and I'm like, well, that's fine. I don't care because I definitely don't look like everyone else.
Yeah.
And
what's the point?
Yeah, all of us should be a booger at some point. And if you were never a booger, then it's like, well, you're really good at makeup. Mm-hmm. But what else are you good at?
Not only are you friends with and work with huge names in drag, but you've also either worked with or hosted shows with quite a few cult icons, such as Elvira, Mink Stole, and John Waters, just to name a few. Anyone that would be a true nightmare to work with in the good way.
In the good way, they're all wonderful.
A nightmare come
Honestly,
true.
I'm like the exception to that rule. Don't meet your idols. You know, that's like such a famous saying. And I idolized Elvira growing up and idolized John Waters and Mink Stole. I mean, Divine had passed away by the time I was old enough to be in a position where I could start to meet these people. But the fact that they, not only have I met them and worked with them, but like the fact that they've opened up their lives to me and like we've become friends is still very surreal for me, because at the end of the day, I'm that fangirl who grew up, you know, idolizing these people. And I've just been really lucky that like I haven't had that experience of really admiring someone and then being disappointed, you know, by working with them. Now, I've worked with a number. It makes it sound like everyone I work with, I become really good friends with. That's not true necessarily, but I would say more times than not, it's been true that I do stay friendly with the people that I've worked with. And I think part of that's that, you know, my job is to celebrate these people and to put them up on a pedestal and to channel the love and the energy of an audience. I think, you know, there's maybe an expectation sometimes if you're appearing on stage with a drag performer to sort of gird your loins, you know, like, is she going to make fun of me? Is she going to, you know, and then, you know, the way I am is usually to make fun of myself and to put people up on a pedestal and really worship them. And so to get to be friends with some of these people has been incredible.
You hosted the Rocky Horror 45th Anniversary Tribute Show with some major stars from the show. What's your secret to keeping those big personalities on track when you're hosting a huge event like that?
I honestly don't keep them on track. Barry Bostwick, Patricia Quinn, and Little Nell Campbell have the biggest personalities. They are wildly entertaining. And so the three of them on stage, it was kind of a free-for-all. And I just kind of, you know, was there to sort of present it, I guess. But yeah, there's no controlling the enthusiasm or the excitement or the spontaneity of any of those three people. Because individually, I've done shows with them as well, with just one of them. And just doing a show with Pat or just doing a show with Barry on its own is wild and crazy, you know. But get the three of them together and it's impossible to control.
You're very well known for your adaptation films, either a short film or live theater production. Do you have any of your favorite that you've ever created?
Well, I think my favorite is probably the one and only real feature film I've done. I'm actually writing finally a script for another feature because, you know, with COVID, I finally found that I have extra time on my hands. For the last years and years, I've been writing, you know, sometimes 4 or 5 new stage shows a year, you know, just cranking them out and loving it. I'm not going to complain. I was loving going on tour. I was loving doing the stage shows. So a lot of people are like, why haven't you written a new movie? It's like, because movies take so much time to write and so much time to make. And I get to do this other thing where I can write this thing and like present it 2 months later. That being said, my feature All About Evil is probably the thing I'm the proudest of because, you know, that was so much work. And, you know, to again, be a drag queen named after Jesus, to have so many doors shut in my face, it was really, you know, validating and gratifying to write a film where, you know, investors basically ponied up $1 million, you know, so that we could make a movie. Like, that still blows me away. And I'm very, very proud of that film. If you haven't seen it yet,
it's actually part of our next question because we can't get it in Canada. We've looked everywhere for it.
I know. So it was distributed here in the US and it was distributed in like Germany and a bunch of European countries, and then in Japan. And the Japan cover art for the Blu-ray is insane. And actually the German cover art is the most insane because it's super violent and super disgusting and actually features something that never happens in the movie. Like they just made up something. So it was distributed not in Canada and not in North America the way it should have been. So it's actually being negotiated right now for it to be on a popular streaming network that you'll be able to see it on hopefully soon.
So this month you started screening your theater adaptations of films. The first one being Witches of East Bay with Coco Prue and Chad Michaels, and then immediately after this interview, you're actually going to do Hokum Pokum with Jinkx and Ben de la Creme. Any thoughts on your next performance you might be screening?
It's funny, I have thoughts on what they should be, but I haven't moved on it, and I'll tell you why. I think I was so determined, after avoiding screening these theatrical productions because I was presenting them and touring with them, and also I just don't think that video is a very good way to experience, something that was theatrical. 9 months into this, into COVID, and realizing that those stage shows aren't coming back anytime soon, sadly, I, acquiesced and said, okay, for Halloween, for October, we'll do the two witches shows. And then I watched Witches of East Bay with Coco and Chad. And I think because I'm so far removed from it now, I really enjoyed it. Like, I was like, oh, I don't care that there are mistakes. I don't care that, I'm reliving some trauma and some stress. I'm actually far enough away from it now because all those shows are so stressful to put together that I really enjoyed it. So it'll be interesting to see what watching Hokum Pokum tonight with Jinkx and Dela is like. Although I know it's probably going to be really fun because they're like, they are like chosen family. We're family together. So I'm looking forward to it. And now I'm actually kind of thinking about, okay, what to stream next. However, I haven't planned anything yet because next week in the United States, as you must know, we have a very important election. And I think I have just been so reluctant to plan anything until after we get through whatever the next couple weeks are going to be. So I think collectively we're all kind of holding our breath. And, I'm cautiously optimistic. Yeah, if I have to go to war, I'm ready to put on my battle armor and become a full-time activist, if that's what it takes. And so I'm waiting until after next week to figure it out. But that being said, I would love to do Legally Black with Bob. I'd love to do Mr. Act with Latrice, or the Baby Jane show I've done with Bianca, or Sheetle that I've done with Bianca.
Will we be getting any more episodes of the Queer Quarantine Radio?
I hope so. Over the summer, when we were about to, work on the third installment of WQUR, Jinkx and Dela were really starting to get word and face reality that the rest of the year was not looking too good. And so, as of the spring, we really thought that we'd be performing again in the summertime. And, then summer rolls around and it's like, we're starting to lose all of our fall gigs. And that was very, kind of shocking. Mm-hmm. And as we're going through the beginning of the summer, Dela was realizing that all of these venues where they do their holiday tour were saying, we're not even booking anything. And so those two smartly switched gears with Major, actually. And I, helped consult on some things, but I really wasn't part of it. They made a movie, a filmed version of their holiday show. And in order to make a movie, especially in that amount of time, they needed to kind of drop WQUR and go to work full time on this movie. And they did it. They're still in post-production, but I can tell you that it's going to be fantastic because I'm one of the few lucky ones that got to, work on the editing process with Dela. So, I'm probably not supposed to say that, but I just am so excited. It's going to be amazing. But that's the truth. We couldn't do both. We couldn't do WQUR and also have them make a movie. So maybe once, now the movie's like in full steam mode where they're in post-production and then immediately coming out of post-production. The holidays is right. It's here basically. So they'll be promoting the movie, selling the movie, just, doing all that. And then, so who knows, maybe next year we'll come back to WQUR.
During a normal October, you run the Terror Vault in San Francisco, but you couldn't open it in 2020 because of good old COVID. You've been doing Screaming Telegrams. Do you plan on adapting those to any other holidays this year?
I don't know. I hadn't thought of that. That's a good question.
Santa would be amazing.
That's true. Yeah, like a really twisted Santa with some elves. I love that. I might have to take that idea and give you full credit. As
long as I get credit, that's fine.
Yeah, I love that idea. Screaming Telegrams was sort of, a response to COVID, but honestly, it was an idea I had last year when I saw a documentary about this clown called Wrinkles. And you can hire Wrinkles down in Florida when you have bad children, and this terrifying clown will like come and traumatize your children so that they'll behave.
That's
And I
amazing.
thought, oh, we have a lot of scary clowns. Maybe we could do something like that.
So on the Drag Time with Heclina podcast, you said that Drag Race is the pumpkin spice latte of drag. I'm curious what drink would be your style of drag?
Jack and Coke. No, I don't know. I guess what I meant by that is that, and I love Drag Race, and I work with so many Drag Race girls, and I'm still a fan of RuPaul. I think that I'm more frustrated by what's happened to drag fan culture than I am necessarily about what's happened to drag culture, because I think drag in general still takes so much nerve, and there's still a certain amount of audacity, and it's uncomfortable, it's hard, it's not easy. And I think the people who are really drawn to it are still motivated by art and self-expression and gender expression, and that part of Drag Race I actually still really appreciate, which is the contestants and RuPaul, but it's more the fan culture that I feel like has turned really basic. And because the fan culture is sort of such a huge part of the culture of drag, I've found that it's really become basic, and I guess the pumpkin latte is my way of I think the other thing is I was, for better or worse, introduced to drag through a very sort of renegade punk rock, horror, wild, outrageous community of people where offending normal people was part of the fun of it, So we were not embraced by, middle America, and we liked that. The variety of drag, the uniqueness of it, the fact that you can do whatever you want with it is part of what makes drag so special. And that's the also the result of Drag Race, right? Like Drag Race never said we represent all of drag. They basically said we're a TV show that's going to have a reality competition where some drag queens compete with some standards of competition or whatever. But yeah, the fact of the matter is, if you really are a true fan of drag, you would know that it runs the gamut, and the world of drag is much broader than what's presented on Drag Race.
Since you're a major horror movie buff, we're going to play a little horror icon Fuck, Marry, Kill. We got Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, and Michael Myers.
I think I would want to marry Freddy, because I love Freddy. Freddy was always my favorite. I mean, I have a Nightmare poster here. I had it framed because I had this poster since I was a kid. I would, God, it's hard to say who you would fuck, whether it's Jason or Michael Myers. I guess I would fuck Jason and kill Michael Myers.
Well, trick question, because even if you kill him, he's coming back anyway.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
And one of the last things I like to always ask everyone who joins me in my fish tank is to do a whale call.
Oh, a real whale call?
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay. Ooh, wait. Ooh. That's more Halloween-y witchy. I don't know.
It's a Halloween whale. Perfect.
That's my Halloween whale call.
So make sure to follow and like Peaches Christ on all our social media platforms. We'll have all that info in the details below. And make sure to hit the like button while you're there. Thanks so much for joining us today, Peaches.
Thanks for having me. It's been a blast. I'm going to spend the evening working on my whale call. Thank you.
Perfect. Julianne, I'll be right back. I need to touch up my makeup.